The desert sun hung like molten gold over Coyote Ridge as Sheriff Noah Hawk Blackwood positioned himself on the ridge overlooking the abandoned mining complex. Through his rifle scope, he counted 17 armed men guarding what was supposed to be a ghost town, 3 days into his role as the youngest sheriff in Sagebrush County's history, and he was already preparing to walk straight into the headquarters of the most dangerous gang in the Southwest. As he chambered around with practiced precision, his hands didn't shake, unlike the deputies who'd refused to join what they called a suicide mission. What the Scorpion Syndicate didn't know was that before pinning on a badge, Noah had been the military's most decorated sniper with confirmed kills that would make even hardened criminals reconsider their life choices. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The early morning light streamed through the dusty blinds of the Sagebrush County Sheriff's Office as Noah Blackwood studied the map spread across his desk. The wooden chair creaked beneath him, a sound he was still getting used to after years of lying motionless in desert sand and mountain scree. His reflection caught in the computer screen showed a face younger than his 32 years would suggest, sharp blue eyes that missed nothing, close-cropped dark hair, and a jawline that local women had already started gossiping about at Darlene's diner. "Another body turned up last night, Sheriff," announced Deputy Miguel Ortega, dropping a file folder onto the desk. His voice carried that familiar edge of skepticism, the same tone Noah had been hearing since the county commissioners selected him over candidates with decades of local experience. Teenager named Carlos Vega. Found him out by Rattlesnake Canyon. Scorpions left their calling card. Noah opened the folder, studying the crime scene photos with eyes that missed nothing. Carlos wasn't just any teenager. He was the star quarterback who volunteered weekends at the community center, who saved his money to help his single mother with bills, who'd been awarded a full scholarship to state next fall. Someone who represented hope in a county that desperately needed it. The images showed the boy's body positioned in the dust, the distinctive scorpion symbol carved into the ground beside him. The black and red bandana, the syndicate's colors, had been stuffed in the victim's mouth. "They're getting bolder," observed Captain Diana Rivera, her weathered face grim as she joined them. 28 years in law enforcement had left, silver threading through her dark hair and deep lines around her eyes. Started with extortion, moved to drug trafficking. Now they're executing kids who refuse to join their operation. FBI called again, offering a task force. "Maybe it's time we considered it, rookie." The suggestion hung in the air like gun smoke, a subtle reminder that many thought the young sheriff was out of his depth. Even the way Rivera called him rookie carried an edge of doubt. Noah spread the crime scene photos across his desk, eyes moving with a precision that few noticed. Where others saw senseless violence, he saw patterns, trajectories, calculated messages. His years as a military sniper hadn't just taught him how to shoot, they had trained him to see what others missed. "No," he replied firmly, tapping one particular photo. "The Scorpions are making mistakes, and bringing in outside help would only prove what they're trying to tell this county, that we can't handle our own problems, that they're stronger than us. Enlighten us, hotshot." Ortega leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "What could you possibly see that 40 years of combined law enforcement experience is missing? These are hardened criminals, not tangos in some foreign desert." Noah pointed to the scorpion symbol carved into the earth, his finger tracing the pattern with the same precision he once used to calculate wind drift. "Look at the details. Their usual enforcer, Diego Stinger Mendez, is right-handed. We know this from security footage at the gas station shooting last month. This symbol was carved by someone left-handed." He grabbed a ruler, making quick, Measurements with sniper-honed accuracy, and Stinger is 6'2". This was carved by someone much shorter, around 5'9". The angle of the knife marks tells us everything. Rivera leaned in closer, her skepticism giving way to curiosity. The veteran captain had seen enough in her 3 decades of service to know when someone was shooting straight with her, both literally and figuratively. Go on. What else are we missing? The Scorpion Syndicate is fracturing, Noah continued, pulling up photos from previous crime scenes and arranging them with methodical precision. These aren't coordinated attacks anymore. They're power plays. Marco the Rattler Vasquez is challenging Vincent King Scorpion Delgado's leadership. That's why these hits are getting messier, more frequent. They're not just trying to intimidate the county, they're trying to prove themselves to each other. Look at the escalation pattern. It's not about maximum terror anymore, it's about making statements. The conversation was interrupted by Maria. Vega bursting into the office, her usual gentle demeanor replaced by barely contained anguish. Her hands trembled as she clutched her son's football jersey, tears streaming down her face. "Sheriff, they threatened my daughter. 2 of them at the school this morning said, if I speak at Carlos's funeral about the Scorpions, they'll make sure Lucia never makes it home from school again. The same Lucia you helped with her science project last month. The high school wasn't just any institution, it was Coyote Ridge's beating heart. 3 generations had walked those hallways, learning, growing, dreaming of futures beyond the harsh desert landscape. The worn bleachers had supported the weight of entire communities, gathering under Friday night lights since before Noah was born. The Scorpion Syndicate had just crossed a line they couldn't uncross. Noah stood, checking his sidearm with practiced efficiency, the same motion he'd performed countless times during his years as a military sniper long before he'd ever pinned on a badge. The familiar weight of his custom Kimber 1911 against his hip wasn't just reassuring. It was a reminder of confirmed shots at distances that commanders had called impossible, of operations that existed only in classified files, of skills that none of his deputies knew about. "They think I'm a joke," he said quietly. "A rookie sheriff who got lucky, but every time they underestimate me, they make another mistake. And this time, they just made their biggest one yet, threatening a child in my county. That's not just you crossing a line, that's asking for a response." Outside his window, storm clouds gathered over the distant mesas, promising rare desert thunder. In Coyote Ridge, summer storms had always been a warning to seek shelter, but this time, the coming storm wouldn't be the one doing the damage. It would be the rookie sheriff they'd all underestimated, and the precision skills he'd kept hidden like a round in the chamber, waiting for the right moment to take his shot. In military circles, they'd called him the Eagle for a reason. Soon, the Scorpion Syndicate would learn why that nickname had made enemy combatants surrender rather than face him across a battlefield. Coyote Ridge wasn't the kind of place that made headlines. Nestled in the embrace of red rock canyons and vast desert plains, it was a town where morning light painted the sandstone in shades of fire, where the scent of Rosa's fresh tortillas from the corner cafe mingled with the rumble of trucks heading toward the interstate. For generations, the biggest excitement came from high school football championships and the annual Desert Heritage Festival, where old-timers still competed in marksmanship contests that dated back to frontier days. The festival's shooting competition had been a town tradition for generations, though few knew just how far those skills had carried the current sheriff. Noah Blackwood knew every inch of this county, every hidden arroyo and mesa top. He'd grown up watching his grandfather compete in those shooting contests, learning to read the desert winds, how to track across seemingly featureless landscapes, how to survive in a place that killed the unprepared. What most folks didn't know was that those same skills had taken him far beyond Sagebrush County's borders, earning him classified commendations and a reputation that made him legendary in special operations circles, all carefully kept quiet when he'd returned home to pin on the badge. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us now. Back to the story. "Morning, Sheriff," called Rosa, setting out fresh pastries on the cafe windowsill. Her family had opened the shop in 1932, and the recipe for her famous cinnamon sopapillas was still a closely guarded secret. "Heard about the Vega boy. Shame. What's happening to this town?" The cafe owner's usually cheerful face carried shadows of worry, her eyes darting to check the street before speaking further. "My son Luis saw those scorpion thugs circling the elementary school yesterday. Never used to have to worry about such things here. Used to be the worst trouble we had was Jimmy Tanner stealing sopapillas off this very windowsill." Noah paused, noting how Rosa's hands trembled slightly as she arranged her pastries. The Scorpion Syndicate was affecting more than just families of victims. They were changing the very rhythm of Coyote Ridge's life. Children were being driven to school instead of walking, businesses were closing early, and the evening strolls along Main Street had all but disappeared. The summer rodeo had been cancelled for the first time in 60 years, and even Sunday church attendance was down as people grew wary of gathering in groups. Inside Rosa's, the usual morning crowd nursed coffee cups, speaking in hushed tones about Carlos Vega and the other recent victims. Judge Harriman, who'd presided over the county court for 3 decades and had been a close friend of Noah's grandfather, sat in his usual corner booth, newspaper spread before him. His wire-rimmed glasses and bolo tie were as much a part of Coyote Ridge as the mesas themselves. "Sheriff," he called out. "Got a minute?" Noah slid into the booth, noting how conversations quieted around them. The judge had been one of the few who'd supported Noah's appointment despite his age, remembering perhaps how the young man's grandfather had once saved his life during a flash flood with a rescue most would call impossible. "These scorpions," Harrison said quietly. "They're not just any gang. My contacts in the federal courthouse say they've been moving through the border states, taking over small counties like ours. 3 communities in New Mexico already fell under their control. Police chiefs resigned, businesses closed, people moved away. They've got a system, Noah. They break a community's spirit before they break its laws." "That won't happen here," Noah replied, his voice carrying the same steady certainty he'd once used to calculate windage at 1,000-yard ranges. His hand unconsciously touched the worn spot on his belt where his military sidearm used to ride. "No?" The judge raised an eyebrow, pushing his coffee aside. "Because you got some plan, or because you're too young to know better? I supported you for this job because I knew your grandfather, knew how he raised you. But even William Blackwood would think twice about taking on an outfit like this alone." Before Noah could respond, Melissa Jordan from the local paper slipped into their booth, her notebook already out, pen poised. She'd moved to Coyote Ridge 3 years ago to run the Desert Chronicle, bringing big city journalism instincts to small-town stories. "Sheriff, care to comment on rumors that the county commissioners are considering requesting federal intervention? Sources say your age and inexperience are causing concern, particularly after what happened in Copper Canyon when the Scorpions took control there." The diner fell silent, all eyes turning to their young sheriff. Noah took a deliberate sip of coffee, his mind calculating angles and approaches just as he'd done on missions. Through the window he could see the desert that had taught him everything he knew about patience, about waiting for the perfect moment to take a shot. "Ms. Jordan, you've lived here, what, 3 years now? Long enough to know Coyote Ridge isn't just any town. We've weathered droughts, economic downturns, and natural disasters. We've done it by standing together, not by asking outsiders to solve our problems. But these aren't natural disasters, she pressed, her pen scratching across the notepad. These are organized criminals with a history of violence. Sources say they've gotten backing from cartels using small counties like ours as training grounds. For larger operations, they've got connections all the way to the state capital, according to some reports. Noah leaned forward, his voice low but carrying in the hushed cafe. You want a story, Melissa? Here's one. In 1887, when cattle barons tried to force our ranchers off their land, Coyote Ridge didn't bow down. In 1953, when mining companies tried to claim our watershed, this town stood its ground. The Scorpion Syndicate thinks they're facing a rookie sheriff and a bunch of small-town folks. They're about to learn what desert people are made of. The conversation was interrupted by the rumble of customized trucks passing outside. Through the window, Noah counted 6 vehicles, their scorpion decals catching the morning sun. The occupants moved slowly, deliberately. A show of force meant to intimidate. But they didn't notice how the young sheriff's eyes tracked their movement, noting makes, models, and driver positions with military-trained precision. Years of reading terrain features and calculating shot trajectories had taught him to see details others missed. You seem awfully confident, Judge Harriman observed after the trucks passed. Want to share why? Because right now, confidence isn't enough. These people have destroyed other communities, son. Noah stood, leaving money for his coffee. Judge, remember those shooting competitions my grandfather used to take me to? There's something about them I never told many people. By 18, I wasn't just competing locally. I was being recruited by special operations. They called me the Eagle in the military, and it wasn't just because I could hit a target. It was because I could read a situation, calculate every variable, and make impossible shots look easy. Those medals in my footlocker aren't just for show. They're proof that sometimes the quietest person in the room is the most dangerous. He moved to the window, watching the trucks disappear around the corner. The Scorpions are used to bullying counties into submission, but they've never faced someone who spent 8 years learning how to turn pressure into precision. They see a rookie sheriff. I see targets who don't know they're already in my crosshairs. Thunder rumbled in the distance as Noah stepped out onto Main Street, the morning crowd watching through Rosa's windows as their young sheriff walked the same path the intimidating trucks had taken, his steps measured and confident. In Coyote Ridge, desert storms had always been more than just weather. They were omens, warnings, promises, and right now they were announcing that change was coming to this ancient landscape, carried not on the wind, but in the steady hands of a sheriff who knew that sometimes the best way to protect a community was to become the weapon it needed. Most Noah's boots kicked up dust as he walked the perimeter of Carlos Vega's memorial site. Yellow police tape fluttered in the hot desert breeze, marking off the area where the teenager's life had been brutally cut short. The morning crowd had dispersed, leaving behind wilting flowers, handwritten notes, and a football jersey pinned beneath stones to keep it from blowing away. Noah crouched, running his fingers through the loose soil, eyes scanning for details others had missed. You're not going to find anything new, Sheriff. Forensics already swept the place twice. Deputy Ortega stood at the edge of the scene, squinting against the harsh sunlight, skepticism etched into every line of his face. They were looking with their eyes. Noah replied without looking up. I'm looking with different training. He moved methodically across the ground, his motions economical and precise. 8 years in Special Forces had taught him to read a landscape like most people read a book. What appeared to be random scuff marks to others were footprints revealing height, weight, and gait to his trained eye. A slight depression in the earth told him where the shooter had stood. The angle of blood spatter confirmed his theory about the left-handed killer. There. Noah pointed to a barely visible impression in the dirt near a scrub bush, 20 yards from where Carlos's body had been found. Someone waited here, patient, professional, military stance. Ortega frowned, moving. Closer. How could you possibly know that? Weight distribution. The way the heel dug in deeper than the toe. It's how you stand when you're trained to hold position for hours. Noah moved to the spot, assuming the exact stance that had left the impression. Your amateur criminals, they pace, they shift, they leave a mess of tracks. This person stood completely still, conserving energy, watching. The deputy's eyes widened slightly as Noah positioned himself in perfect alignment with the footprint. Military? Or former military, Noah confirmed, his expression darkening. The Scorpions have been recruiting. That's a new development. The realization hung between them as a dust devil swirled across the empty parking lot, spinning tumbleweeds in its wake. Coyote Ridge was changing, evolving into something neither of them recognized. I pulled Vincent Delgado's file like you asked, Ortega said finally, the edge in his voice softening slightly. King Scorpion's got a longer rap sheet than I expected. Started small time in Ciudad Juarez, worked his way up, but there's something weird, a 3-year gap. Between 2017 and 2020, he completely disappeared off the radar. Noah stood, brushing desert dust from his uniform. Not disappeared, he was being trained. By who? That's what we need to find out. The drive back to town took them past abandoned ranches and failed businesses, casualties of the economic downturn that had hit Sagebrush County long before the Scorpions arrived. Noah drove in silence, his mind mapping connections, plotting strategies. The gang hadn't chosen Coyote Ridge by accident. They'd selected it precisely because it was vulnerable. A community already on its knees. Sheriff, you mind if I ask you something personal? Ortega broke the silence as they passed the rusting remains of what had once been a thriving mining operation. Depends on what it is. Why'd you come back? Word is you had some fancy classified career going. Why trade that for a badge in a dying county that pays next to nothing? Noah's grip tightened imperceptibly on the steering wheel, his eyes never leaving the road. I made a promise. To your grandfather. To myself. The answer seemed to satisfy Ortega, who nodded and turned his attention back to the scrubland passing outside the window. The deputy was smart enough not to press further, knowing some questions, unlocked doors better left closed. As they crested the hill overlooking Coyote Ridge, Noah slowed the patrol car. From this vantage point, he could see the entire town spread out below, a scattered collection of buildings shimmering in the heat haze, surrounded by the vast emptiness of the desert. It looked small, vulnerable, worth protecting. His radio crackled to life with Captain Rivera's voice. Sheriff, we've got a situation at Darlene's diner. 3 Scorpions are causing trouble, refused to pay their bill, and now they're intimidating customers. On my way, Noah responded, pressing down on the accelerator. Tell everyone to stand down until I get there. Already called in backup. No backup, he cut her off. Just me. Sheriff, that's not protocol. Diana. Noah used her first name deliberately. Trust me on this one. The silence that followed told him she wasn't happy, but she'd comply. For now. Darlene's diner sat at the intersection of Main Street and Route 87, its faded turquoise exterior and neon sign a landmark in Coyote Ridge since the 1950s. The chrome-trimmed building had served as an unofficial community center for decades, a place where ranchers, teachers, and teenagers all found common ground over Darlene's famous green chili cheeseburgers. Now, its windows reflected the harsh midday sun as Noah pulled up alone and unhurried. Through the glass, he could see 3 men in black and red bandanas occupying a booth. Darlene herself stood nearby, arms crossed, her normally welcoming expression replaced with thinly veiled fear. The few remaining customers had retreated to the counter, watching the scene unfold. Noah adjusted his badge, checked his sidearm, and walked through the door with measured steps. The bell above the entrance announced his arrival, but he said nothing, moving directly to the counter where he nodded at Darlene. Sheriff, she said, her voice steady despite her trembling hands. "These gentlemen seem to have forgotten how we do business in Coyote Ridge." "I'll handle it," Noah replied quietly. "Why don't you take a break in the back? My diner, my rules." "I'm staying right here." Noah allowed himself a small smile. Darlene Whitehorse had been serving food and attitude in equal measure for 30 years. Her Navajo ancestors had survived centuries in this harsh landscape through sheer determination, and that same spirit ran strong in her veins. "Suit yourself." He turned to face the three scorpions, who had watched the exchange with growing amusement. The largest of the three, a heavy-set man with a scorpion tattooed on his neck, nudged his companions. "Look who it is, boys. The baby sheriff come to save the day." "Gentlemen," Noah said, his voice carrying that same quiet authority he'd used to command special operations teams in situations far more dangerous than this. "I understand there's an issue with your bill." The neck-tattooed man smirked. "No issue. We don't pay in scorpion territory. Old lady should be grateful we even eat in this dump." "That's so." Noah glanced around the diner, taking in every detail. Distances, angles, potential weapons, civilian positions. His mind calculated threat assessments automatically, a habit ingrained through years of training. "Funny, I don't see any scorpion flags flying over Main Street. Last I checked, this was Sagebrush County." "Check again," the second man said, pulling his jacket aside to reveal a handgun tucked into his waistband. "This is King Scorpion's territory now. You just don't know it yet." The threat hung in the air like the desert heat, heavy, oppressive. The few customers at the counter shifted nervously. Darlene's hand moved beneath the counter where Noah knew she kept a shotgun. "Let me make something clear," Noah said, moving closer to their booth with unhurried confidence. "I'm going to give you one chance to pay your bill, apologize to Ms. Whitehorse, and walk out of here. Take that chance, and we can all go about our day like nothing happened." The third scorpion, younger than the others with fresh ink still healing, on his knuckles laughed. "Or what? You going to arrest all three of us by yourself? Even if you got that pea shooter out, one of us would still put you down." Noah shook his head slightly. "You're making a common mistake. You're thinking about how fast you can draw. I'm not concerned with that." "No?" Neck Tattoo sneered. "What are you concerned with then, Sheriff?" "Trajectory," Noah replied simply. Before any of the gang members could process his meaning, Noah's hand moved with a speed that seemed impossible. In one fluid motion, he grabbed a heavy ceramic mug from the counter, flipped it once in his palm to position his grip, and sent it flying with pinpoint accuracy. The mug connected with Neck Tattoo's wrist just as he reached for his weapon, striking precisely where the radial nerve was closest to the surface. The man's hand went instantly numb, fingers splaying uselessly as his gun clattered to the floor. In the same heartbeat, Noah had already calculated his next move. A salt shaker became an improvised projectile, striking the second scorpion directly in the throat with enough force to collapse him, gasping against the vinyl booth. The third gang member managed to pull his weapon halfway before a sugar dispenser hit him squarely between the eyes with mathematical precision, stunning him long enough for Noah to close the distance. 3 seconds after Noah had said the word, "Trajectory," all three scorpions were effectively neutralized, one clutching a numb arm, one struggling to breathe, and one staring cross-eyed at the blood trickling from his forehead. The diner had fallen completely silent. Darlene stood, frozen, her hand still beneath the counter. The customers at the bar watched with stunned expressions that slowly transformed into something like awe. Noah calmly removed the weapons from each scorpion, placing them on a nearby table. "Now, about that bill." Neck Tattoo, still shaking his useless hand, glared up at the sheriff with newfound wariness. "Who the hell are you?" "Just a public servant making sure the peace is kept," Noah replied, his voice betraying no emotion. "Ms. Whitehorse, how much do these gentlemen owe you?" $47.35, Darlene answered, a hint of satisfaction creeping into her voice. Noah turned back to the Scorpions. I'll add that to the charges. Speaking of which, we have brandishing a weapon, threatening a public official, and failure to pay for services rendered. That's just for starters. The youngest gang member reached slowly into his pocket and withdrew, a crumpled wad of bills, tossing them onto the table. This isn't over, Sheriff. Oh, I think it is, Noah responded. At least for today. Now you have a choice. You can leave my town quietly, or you can spend the night in my jail. The accommodations aren't great, but the company's exclusive. For a tense moment, it seemed the Scorpions might choose the latter option. Then Neck Tattoo jerked his head toward the door. Let's go. King Scorpion will want to hear about this. I'm counting on it, Noah said, stepping aside to let them pass. Be sure to give him my regards. As the three Scorpions slunk out of the diner, the customers at the counter erupted into excited chatter. Phones came out, already recording and texting, spreading the story through Coyote Ridge's digital grapevine. That was the damnedest thing I've ever seen, Darlene said, finally removing her hand from beneath the counter. Where'd you learn to throw like that? Afghanistan, Noah answered simply. When you can't risk a gunshot giving away your position, you find other ways to solve problems. Well, I'd say that was problem-solving at its finest, she replied, pouring him a cup of coffee. On the house. Noah accepted the mug with a nod of thanks, taking a measured sip as he watched through the window. The Scorpions had climbed into their truck, but weren't leaving yet. Instead, they sat idling at the curb, clearly using their phones. Reporting back. Good. The bell above the door jingled as Captain Rivera entered, hand instinctively resting on her sidearm. She surveyed the scene, the scattered money on the table, the abandoned weapons, the excited customers, before fixing her gaze on Noah. Care to explain why you countermanded my order for backup, Sheriff? Noah set down his coffee cup. Because I needed them to underestimate me, and they did. This time, she responded, but there was a new note in her voice. Not quite respect, but something approaching it. You realize you've just painted a target on your back. The Scorpions don't take humiliation well. I'm counting on it. Through the window, Noah watched as the Scorpion's truck finally pulled away. From the curb, dust kicking up behind its tires. In its side mirror, he could see Neck Tattoo watching him, the man's expression a mixture of rage and something Noah recognized all too well from his military days. Fear. Phase 1. Complete, he thought. The message was sent. Now it was time to prepare for the response. Sheriff, a young voice called from the doorway. Leo Jordan, Melissa's 12-year-old son, stood clutching his phone. Everyone's talking about what happened. They're saying you took down 3 Scorpions with just some dishes. Is it true? Noah met the boy's wide-eyed gaze. In Leo's expression, he saw something that had been missing in Coyote Ridge for too long. Hope. True enough, he answered, though I wouldn't try it at home. But how? Leo pressed. How'd you know? You could do that. Noah considered the question, aware of the growing audience. Captain Rivera watched him with interest. Darlene had paused in her cleaning. Even the cook had emerged from the kitchen. It's not about knowing you can do something, Leo, he finally said. It's about understanding that when you've calculated every variable, distance, trajectory, timing, the outcome isn't a question of if, but when. The boy's brow furrowed. Like math? Exactly like math, Noah confirmed, finishing his coffee. Only the equation I'm solving is a bit bigger than what they teach you in school. What equation is that? Rivera asked. Noah stood, placing his empty mug on the counter and dropping a generous tip beside it. How to show a predator that it's become prey. As he walked toward the door, he felt the weight of every gaze in the diner. Something had shifted in Coyote Ridge today. A subtle change. In the atmosphere as palpable as the drop in barometric pressure before a storm. "Sheriff," Darlene called after him, "what happens when the rest of the Scorpions come looking for payback?" Noah paused in the doorway, the desert sun casting his shadow long across the diner floor. "They won't be looking for me, Miss Whitehorse. They'll be hunting a rookie sheriff who got lucky with some dinnerware." "And what will they find instead?" she asked. For the first time since his arrival in Coyote Ridge, Noah allowed himself a genuine smile, the kind that never reached his eyes during his military days, the kind that made hardened soldiers instinctively step back. The eagle. Darkness had fallen over Coyote Ridge by the time Noah pulled up to the abandoned fire lookout tower that crowned Mesa Roja. The structure stood like a sentinel against the star-filled sky, its weathered frame silhouetted against the rising moon. This remote outpost, decommissioned years ago due to budget cuts, had become his unofficial headquarters, a place where he could work undisturbed, away from curious eyes and office politics. Noah climbed the creaking wooden stairs, each step deliberate and silent out of habit rather than necessity. The circular room at the top offered a 360-degree view of Sagebrush County, from the twinkling lights of Coyote Ridge to the vast emptiness where the Scorpion Syndicate's compound lay. Hidden among the arroyos, he'd chosen this location carefully. In his experience, elevation provided both tactical advantage and clarity of thought. The makeshift operations center he'd established contained none of the sophisticated equipment he'd once had access to in the military. Instead, a collapsible table held hand-drawn maps, surveillance photos, and handwritten notes. A battery-powered lamp cast long shadows across the walls, where he'd pinned newspaper clippings tracking the Scorpion's rise to power. In the corner, a military-grade rifle case lay unopened, a last resort he hoped to avoid using. Noah unfolded a topographical map of the area surrounding the abandoned mining complex that served as the Scorpion Syndicate's headquarters. Satellite images obtained through old military connections revealed recent construction, new structures, reinforced barriers, and what appeared to be lookout posts. Not the work of common criminals. This was organized, tactical, professional. His phone vibrated with an incoming text. The screen showed a message from an unlisted number. The Scorpion who would sting must first approach its target. "Watch your back, Eagle. Some nests are better left undisturbed." Noah stared at the message, his expression unchanging. The use of his old call sign confirmed his suspicions. Someone in the syndicate had military intelligence connections. Someone who knew enough to identify him despite his efforts to keep his past classified. The game had changed. He typed a reply. "When you're ready to talk, you know where to find me." The response came immediately. "Oh, we'll talk. After we teach your town a lesson about respecting the natural order. Scorpions always win in the desert." Noah set down the phone, his mind already calculating possibilities, counters, angles of approach. The Darlene's diner incident had escalated matters faster than anticipated, but the underlying pattern remained consistent with his profile of the syndicate's leadership. They would respond with a show of force, something public, dramatic, designed to undo the shift in confidence his actions had created among the townspeople. The question wasn't if they would strike, but where and when. His radio crackled to life. "Sheriff, you copy?" Deputy Ortega's voice sounded tense. "Go ahead. Got a situation at the high school. Security alarm triggered. But when Ramirez drove by on patrol, he saw what looked like Scorpion vehicles in the parking lot. Said they were unloading something." Noah was already moving toward the stairs. "How many?" "At least 4 trucks, maybe 15 men. Tell Ramirez to maintain visual contact, but keep his distance. No engagement. I'm 10 minutes out. Captain Rivera wants to know if we should call state police for backup." Noah paused at the top of the stairs, looking out across the darkened landscape toward the soft glow of Coyote Ridge High School in the distance. "Negative. This isn't about arresting criminals." "Then what's it about, Sheriff?" "Springing their trap." The line went quiet for a beat. "You think it's a setup?" "I know it is," Noah replied, descending the stairs with practiced efficiency. "And I'm counting on it." The high school parking lot was eerily quiet when Noah arrived, killing his headlights a quarter-mile out and approaching on foot through the desert scrub. The Scorpion vehicles Ramirez had reported were gone, but fresh tire tracks in the soft dirt told Noah they hadn't left long ago. He signaled to Deputy Ramirez, who was maintaining surveillance from the baseball field bleachers. "What did you see?" Noah asked as the deputy joined him, both men keeping to the shadows. "4 trucks, about 15 men. They entered through the gym doors, looked like they had keys, carried in several large duffel bags. Were inside maybe 20 minutes, then left in a hurry." Noah nodded, his eyes scanning the darkened building. "They wanted to be spotted, made enough noise to trigger the alarm, but didn't stick around for a confrontation. A diversion, possibly, or they left something behind." Ramirez's eyes widened. "You think they planted explosives?" "No," Noah replied with certainty. "That's not their style. The Scorpions want to control this town, not destroy its infrastructure. Whatever they left is designed to send a message, not level a building." The 2 men approached the gymnasium doors cautiously. Noah noted the absence of forced entry. Someone had provided access. The corruption had spread further than he'd anticipated. Inside, the gymnasium was dark, except for the emergency exit signs casting a red glow across the polished floor. Noah moved silently, pistol drawn, senses hyper-alert to any sound or movement. The space appeared empty until a faint metallic glint caught his eye near center court. "I've got something," he said softly, approaching the object. In the center of the basketball court, arranged with deliberate precision, lay Carlos Vega's Letterman jacket. Pinned to it was a silver scorpion brooch, its metal catching the dim, red light. Around the jacket, positioned at precise intervals, were photographs, dozens of them forming a perfect circle. Noah crouched to examine them without touching anything. Each photo showed a student from Coyote Ridge High School. Football players, cheerleaders, band members, debate team, candid shots taken without their knowledge. At the bottom of each photo was a name and address, written in meticulous handwriting. "Jesus," Ramirez breathed, looking over Noah's shoulder. "They're targeting kids now?" "No," Noah said, his voice hardening. "They're threatening them. There's a difference." He stood surveying the macabre display. This wasn't random intimidation, it was calculated psychological warfare. The Scorpions were demonstrating their reach, their resources, their ability to touch the most vulnerable members of the community. "What do we do?" Ramirez asked, holstering his weapon. "First we document everything, then we remove it before any students or staff arrive tomorrow. No one outside law enforcement sees this. The parents have a right to know their kids are being—" "No. Noah repeated firmly. "That's exactly what they want. Panic, fear, parents pulling kids from school, life in Coyote Ridge grinding to a halt. We don't give them that satisfaction." As Ramirez began photographing the scene, Noah walked the perimeter of the gymnasium, checking doorways, windows, potential hiding spots. His training had taught him to never accept the obvious threat as the only threat. In the locker room, he found what he was looking for. A small electronic device attached to the underside of a bench. Not a bomb, but a cellular transmitter with a camera. They were watching, waiting to see his reaction to their handiwork. Noah stared directly into the camera's lens. "Amateur hour," he said clearly, before crushing the device under his boot. Back, in the gymnasium, he helped Ramirez document and collect the evidence. "Have Rivera meet us at the station. We need to identify every student in these photos and arrange discreet protection without creating mass hysteria." "That's going to stretch our resources pretty thin, Sheriff." "I know. That's part of their strategy." As they exited the building, the night sky had begun to lighten imperceptibly in the east. Noah paused, watching the first hint of dawn touch the distant mountains. Time was a resource the Scorpions had in abundance. They could afford to play the long game, wear down resistance, exploit weaknesses. But time could also be a weapon if used correctly. "Deputy," Noah said as they reached their vehicles, "I need you to handle something sensitive." "Name it." "Name it." "Talk to Judge Harriman. Tell him I need access to the old mining tunnels that run under the courthouse, the ones they sealed up after the collapse in '98. Ramirez frowned. "Those tunnels are condemned, structurally unsound." "That's what the public record says," Noah agreed. "But you and I both know your grandfather was the engineer who inspected them. What did he really find?" The deputy's expression shifted from confusion to understanding. "How did you know about that?" "I make it my business to know the true history of the places I protect," Noah replied simply. "Will the tunnels work for what I need?" Ramirez considered for a moment, then nodded slowly. "They're stable enough. Network covers most of downtown. Access points in the courthouse basement, the old bank building, and behind Rosa's Cafe. Perfect. I'll need detailed maps by this afternoon." "What are you planning, Sheriff?" Noah's eyes returned to the horizon, where the first sliver of sun was emerging. A lesson in desert ecology. The sheriff's office was buzzing with activity. When Noah arrived after securing the high school scene, every available deputy had been called in, and the conference room had been transformed into an operations center. Captain Rivera stood at the center, directing teams with the efficiency of someone who'd managed crises before. "Sheriff," she acknowledged as he entered, "we've identified most of the students from the photos. Deputies are making discreet contact with families now, telling them it's part of a new safety initiative. No mention of threats." Noah nodded his approval. "Any patterns in who they targeted?" "Mostly students connected to prominent community members. The mayor's son, Judge Harriman's granddaughter, business owners' kids, and every member of the football team. They're applying pressure to the community's pressure points," Noah observed. "Classic insurgency tactic." "This isn't some foreign battlefield, Sheriff," Rivera reminded him. "These are our kids." "The principles are the same," Noah replied, moving to the map of Coyote Ridge pinned to the wall. "An enemy identifies what you value most, threatens it, and offers protection in exchange for compliance. So what's the counter-strategy?" she asked. Noah studied the map, his finger tracing the main roads into town. "We need to change the equation. Right now, they believe they can apply pressure with impunity because we're reactive, responding to their moves, always one step behind. And how do we get ahead of them?" "We don't," Noah said, turning to face the room full of deputies. "We make them come to us, on our terms." The room fell silent as Noah outlined his plan. It was unorthodox, high risk, and unlike anything Sagebrush County law enforcement had ever attempted. When he finished, Captain Rivera pulled him aside. "This isn't standard procedure," she said quietly. "If it goes wrong, it won't," Noah assured her. "How can you be so certain?" "Because I've played this game before, with higher stakes and better trained opponents." Rivera studied him, her experience warring with protocol. "The commissioners won't approve this kind of operation." "That's why we're not asking for approval," Noah replied. "By this time tomorrow, the Scorpions will have made their big move. All we need to do is be ready when they do. And if you're wrong, if they don't take the bait," Noah's expression revealed nothing, "then I'll have misread the situation and we'll try something else." "Just like that? Just like that?" Rivera shook her head slightly. "You're either the most confident man I've ever met or the most reckless." "Neither," Noah corrected her. "I'm just applying mathematics to human behavior. The Scorpions rely on intimidation because it's worked everywhere else. When intimidation fails, they escalate dramatically to restore their perceived power. It's not a question of if they'll make a move, but when and how big." "And you think it'll be tomorrow?" I'm certain of it, Noah replied. They need to respond quickly to the diner incident. The longer they wait, the weaker they appear to their own people. As the meeting broke up and deputies dispersed to their assignments, Melissa Jordan from the Desert Chronicle waited outside Noah's office. Her notebook was ready, but her expression showed concern rather than her usual journalistic detachment. "Sheriff, got a minute?" "Off the record." Noah gestured her inside. "What's on your mind, Miss Jordan?" Once the door closed, Melissa's professional demeanor dropped. "My son's photo was among those left at the school, wasn't it? That's why Deputy Wilson came by this morning with that story about a student safety program." Noah considered denying it, then thought better of it. Yes, she absorbed this with remarkable composure. "Because of my reporting on the Scorpions?" "Likely." "I won't be intimidated into silence," she stated firmly. "I never thought you would be." Melissa studied him, her reporter's instincts clearly sensing there was more to the situation than she was being told. "You're planning something big." It wasn't a question, so Noah didn't treat it as one. Instead, he asked, "Do you trust me to protect this community, Ms. Jordan?" "I'm not sure yet," she answered honestly, "but Leo does. After the diner incident, he said you were like something out of those superhero movies he watches. Said you moved faster than should be." "Possible. Kids exaggerate." "Maybe," she conceded, "but my son doesn't scare easily, and he hasn't felt safe in this town for months. Last night was the first time he went to sleep without checking the locks twice." Noah absorbed this, understanding the responsibility it represented. "I need something from you." "What?" "Tomorrow I need you to be at the Desert Heritage Festival with your camera. No matter what happens, what you hear or what you're told, be there." Her journalistic instincts visibly sharpened. "Why?" "Because someone needs to document what happens," Noah replied, "and I think you'll know the difference between what should be reported and what should be kept off the record." Melissa considered this, then nodded slowly. "Is that all?" "One more thing," Noah added as she stood to leave. "Bring Leo. Make sure he's wearing something distinctive. That red baseball cap he likes, and stay close to the main stage around noon." "You're using us as bait," she realized, her voice hardening. "No," Noah corrected her. "I'm making sure you're exactly where I can protect you when everything happens. There's a difference." After Melissa left, Noah locked his office door and pulled down the blinds. From his desk drawer, he removed a small leather case containing tools the military had provided, but never officially acknowledged. Within 15 minutes, he had bypassed the standard county communication system and established a secure line to a number few civilians knew existed. "Access code," came the automated response. "Sierra Echo 497 Tango," Noah replied. "Operation Desert Eagle." There was a long pause before a human voice came on the line. "Blackwood? I thought you retired." "I did, but I need a favor, Colonel." "You know I can't authorize military resources for domestic law enforcement." "I'm not asking for military resources," Noah clarified. "Just information." Another pause. "What kind of information?" "Everything you have on Vincent King Scorpion Delgado and his connections to Project Sidewinder." The silence that followed told Noah everything he needed to know. "That's classified," the colonel finally said. "So was my service record. But somehow the Scorpions know my call sign." "That's impossible." "Someone's talking, Colonel. And while they're talking, American citizens are dying in my county." The line went quiet again, then, "Give me 6 hours. I need it in 3. The clock's already ticking." After disconnecting, Noah stood at his office window, watching the town below come to life with the rising sun. Shopkeepers unlocked doors, parents dropped children at school, ordinary people went about their day, unaware that forces were gathering, preparing to collide. Tomorrow, everything would change. For better or worse would depend on his ability to predict, prepare and execute with the same precision that had once made him legendary in military circles. Noah checked his watch. 29 hours until the Desert Heritage Festival began. 29 hours to set a trap for predators who thought they were the hunters. The Desert Heritage Festival had been Coyote Ridge's crowning event for generations. Held annually on the third Saturday of October, it transformed the town's central plaza into a vibrant celebration of frontier culture, complete with craft vendors, traditional foods, live music, and the legendary marksmanship competition that dated back to 1887. For most residents, it represented the heart and soul of their community, a day when the harsh realities of desert life gave way to collective joy and remembered traditions. This year, however, an undercurrent of tension ran beneath the festive atmosphere. Though the morning had started with the usual parade and the plaza now bustled with activity, Noah noted the subtle differences. Parents keeping children closer, shopkeepers eyeing strangers with suspicion, volunteers scanning the crowd with nervous glances. Fear had become Coyote Ridge's unwelcome guest, present even during celebration. "Positions confirmed, Sheriff," Deputy Ortega reported through Noah's earpiece. "All access points covered. Rivera's team is in place at the north. Entrance, Ramirez has the south, plainclothes officers embedded with vendors as planned." Noah acknowledged with a subtle nod, maintaining his casual demeanor as he moved through the crowd. He wore civilian clothes today, jeans, boots, and a worn leather jacket that concealed both his badge and his sidearm. Nothing about his appearance suggested he was orchestrating the most ambitious law enforcement operation in Sagebrush County's history. "Visual on targets?" he asked quietly, stopping to examine a silversmith's display. "Negative. No Scorpion vehicles within the perimeter." "Yet they'll come," Noah replied with certainty. "Eyes on Jordan and her son." "Affirmative. Main stage, front row, east side. The boys wearing the red cap as instructed." Noah turned, scanning the gathering crowd near the stage where a local band was setting up. He spotted Melissa Jordan and Leo exactly where he'd asked them to be, the boy's bright red baseball cap making them easy to track in the crowd. "Perfect. Package secure?" he continued, moving toward the food vendors. "Yes, sir. Judge Harriman delivered it personally this morning, locked in the courthouse basement as requested." "And our friend from Phoenix?" "Arrived an hour ago, waiting at the rendezvous point." Noah checked his watch. 11:37 a.m. The Scorpions hadn't made their move yet, but every instinct honed through years of combat told him they were watching, waiting for the right moment. The festival would reach its peak attendance around noon when the marksmanship competition was scheduled to begin. If he were planning a show of force designed for maximum impact, that would be the moment. His phone vibrated with an incoming text from an unlisted number. "Your move, Eagle. We're watching." Noah pocketed the phone without replying. The message confirmed what he already knew. He was under surveillance. Somewhere in this crowd, Scorpion eyes were tracking his movements, reporting back to their leadership. Let them watch. Let them think they had the advantage. The courthouse. Clock tower chimed the quarter hour, 11:45 a.m., 15 minutes until the competition. Noah made his way toward the shooting range that had been set up at the far end of the plaza, noting with approval how his deputies had subtly positioned themselves throughout the crowd. To untrained eyes, they looked like ordinary festival-goers. To Noah, they formed a carefully designed security web. The shooting competition had drawn its usual crowd of participants and spectators. Men and women of all ages stood ready with their rifles and pistols, preparing to test their skills against wooden targets arranged at various distances. In previous years, Noah's grandfather had dominated this event. Today, it would serve a different purpose. "Sheriff," Judge Harriman approached, his voice low. Everything in place? Yes. Is the microphone ready? The judge nodded toward the announcer's stand. Ready and waiting. You're sure about this? As sure as I can be, Noah replied. Just remember, when it starts, get the civilians into the courthouse. The tunnels are prepared. And if they don't take the bait, they will. Noah moved to the registration table, picking up a clipboard as if checking the competitor list. As he scanned the names, a familiar one caught his eye. William Blackwood, his grandfather, crossed out and replaced with his own. The old competition. Official manning the table gave him a knowing wink. Your grandfather would be proud to see you taking his place, the man said. He always said you were a better shot than him, even if you never competed officially. He was being generous, Noah replied. I'm just hoping I remember what he taught me. The lie came easily. What most of Coyote Ridge couldn't know, was that Noah's grandfather had indeed taught him to shoot, but the military had perfected his skills to a level few civilians could comprehend. The countless hours spent in classified training facilities had transformed natural talent into something approaching perfection. The courthouse clock struck noon. The festival reached its crescendo of activity as families gathered to watch the competition. The band finished its set, and food vendors called out their specialties. Noah took his position among the other competitors, accepting a standard .30-06 hunting rifle from the equipment table. As the announcer began explaining the rules to the crowd, Noah spotted them. 3 black SUVs with tinted windows rolling slowly down Main Street toward the plaza. Right on schedule. Targets acquired, Ortega's voice whispered in his earpiece. 3 vehicles heavily loaded based on suspension. Estimate 12 to 15 occupants. Hold positions, Noah instructed. Let them make the first move. The SUVs, parked in a synchronized formation, blocking the main exit from the plaza. To the crowd, it might have appeared coincidental, but Noah recognized the tactical positioning, standard containment protocol designed to control access and egress. The Scorpions had military training, just as he'd suspected. The competition began. One by one, shooters took their positions at the firing line, aiming at wooden silhouettes placed at 100, 200, and 300 yards. Noah watched, waiting for his turn, feeling the subtle shift in atmosphere as Scorpion members began filtering into the crowd, black and red bandanas visible now, moving with purpose towards strategic positions. Sheriff, Ortega warned, they're surrounding the stage area. Jordan and her son are in their path. Maintain position, Noah insisted. Not yet. When his name was called, Noah stepped to the firing line. The crowd's chatter diminished as he raised the rifle, checking its weight and balance with practiced hands. It was a decent civilian model, though nothing compared to the precision instruments he'd used in the military. It would serve his purpose. Through the scope, he could see the wooden targets clearly, but his peripheral vision tracked the movement of Scorpion members converging on the stage area. Any moment now, Noah fired his first shot, striking the 100-yard target dead center. The crowd applauded appreciatively. He chambered another round and fired again, hitting the 200-yard target with equal precision. More applause, louder this time. As he prepared for his third shot, he saw it, the signal. A Scorpion member near the stage raised his hands slightly, and others began moving with renewed purpose. Noah adjusted his aim, took a breath, and fired his third shot. The 300-yard target exploded in a shower of splinters as his bullet found its mark. The crowd erupted in cheers, drowning out the subtle click of weapons being readied throughout the plaza. But Noah heard it. He'd been waiting for it. Without lowering his rifle, he spoke clearly into his concealed microphone. Execute. What happened next unfolded with choreographed precision. As the first Scorpion members drew their weapons, near the stage, plainclothes deputies emerged from the crowd with firearms already trained on them. Simultaneously, the festival security team, actually off-duty state police officers Noah had quietly brought in, moved to evacuate civilians toward the courthouse. Noah remained at the firing line, rifle still raised, as Vincent, King Scorpion, Delgado emerged from the center SUV. The gang leader was exactly as intelligence had described, tall, imposing, with an ornate scorpion tattoo crawling up his neck onto his jaw. He wore an expensive suit that couldn't quite disguise his military bearing. "Sheriff Blackwood," Delgado called out, his voice carrying across the suddenly quieting plaza. "Or should I say, Sergeant Blackwood, the legendary Eagle." Noah lowered his rifle slowly, turning to face the gang leader. "Just sheriff is fine. Is this how you welcome visitors to your festival?" Delgado gestured to the deputies who now had his men surrounded. "Seems inhospitable." "Visitors are always welcome in Coyote Ridge," Noah replied evenly. "Armed gangs planning to terrorize civilians are not." The crowd had thinned considerably as people fled toward the courthouse, but enough remained to witness the confrontation. Noah noticed Melissa Jordan hadn't moved, her phone raised, recording everything. Good, they'd need the evidence. Delgado smiled, revealing a gold tooth. "Terrorize? We're simply attending a public event, perhaps participating in the local traditions." He nodded toward the rifle in Noah's hands. "Impressive shooting, by the way, almost as good as your work in Kandahar." The reference was deliberate, a clear message that Delgado had access to classified information. Noah's expression remained neutral, though his mind raced through possibilities. Someone with high-level military clearance was feeding the Scorpion's intelligence. The question was who and why. "You seem to know a lot about me," Noah observed. "That puts you at a disadvantage." "How do you figure?" "Because I know even more. About you, Captain Delgado. Or should I say former Captain Vincent Delgado, dishonorable discharge 2017. After Operation Sidewinder went sideways. 3 dead American contractors, millions in missing funds, and 1 captain who disappeared rather than face a court-martial." For the first time, Delgado's composure faltered. His eyes narrowed, hand twitching toward the weapon concealed beneath his jacket. "Where did you get that information?" "The same place I got this," Noah replied, nodding toward Judge Harriman, who now approached carrying a sealed envelope. "Federal warrants for your arrest on charges of treason, arms trafficking, and multiple homicides. Seems your friends in high places aren't as loyal as you thought." Delgado's face darkened with rage. "You have no idea what you're dealing with, Sheriff. This goes beyond your little county, beyond state lines. There are people who want this territory secured, and they don't care how many small-town lawmen get buried along the way." "I'm counting on it," Noah replied calmly. "That's why everything happening right now is being live-streamed to federal authorities in 3 states. Ms. Jordan's camera is just one of many documenting your confession." For a moment the plaza hung, intense silence. Noah could see Delgado calculating options, weighing risks. The Scorpions outnumbered law enforcement, but they were surrounded, exposed, caught in the open with civilians as witnesses. It wasn't the scenario they had planned for. "Last chance, Delgado," Noah said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Surrender peacefully, and we do this by the book." Delgado's laugh was bitter. "You think I built all this just to surrender to some backwater sheriff? I've got judges, politicians, and generals on my payroll. I'll be out before sundown." "Maybe," Noah conceded. "But first, you have to leave this plaza alive." The threat hung in the air between them. Noah could see the exact moment Delgado made his decision, a subtle shift in posture, a hardening around the eyes. "Now!" Delgado shouted, drawing his weapon with practiced speed. Noah was faster. The hunting rifle in his hands came up with fluid precision, and he fired a single shot before Delgado's gun cleared its holster. The bullet struck the gang leader's weapon with surgical accuracy, sending it spinning from his grasp while leaving his hand intact. Chaos erupted across the plaza as scorpions reached for weapons, only to find themselves targeted by deputies who had anticipated their movements. Civilians screamed, running for cover as gunshots rang out, but the crossfire Noah had feared never materialized. His team had positioned themselves perfectly, creating clean lines of fire that minimized risk to bystanders. Through it all, Noah remained at the center, a fixed point of calm in the storm. When a Scorpion member tried to flank him from behind a vendor's stall, Noah's second shot disabled the man's weapon without drawing blood. When another took aim at Deputy Ortega from a rooftop, Noah's third shot shattered the rifle's scope, sending the shooter scrambling for cover. "Hold your fire!" Delgado finally shouted to his men, raising his hands in surrender. "Hold your fire!" As quickly as it had begun, the confrontation ended. Scorpion members, seeing their leader captured and their advantage lost, lowered their weapons one by one. Deputies moved in to secure them as Judge Harriman stepped forward with the federal warrants. "Vincent Delgado," the judge announced formally, "you are under arrest for multiple federal violations, including treason against the United States." As Delgado was handcuffed, he fixed Noah with a look of pure hatred. "This isn't over, Eagle. You have no idea who you're really fighting." "That's where you're wrong," Noah replied quietly, so only Delgado could hear. "I know exactly who's behind this. The question is whether you'll live long enough to find out if they'll protect you or silence you." Doubt flickered across Delgado's face, the first genuine emotion Noah had seen from him. "What are you talking about?" Noah leaned closer. Project Sidewinder wasn't just about weapons trafficking. It was about establishing controlled territories on American soil, testing grounds for population control techniques developed for foreign occupations. You weren't the mastermind, Delgado. You were the test case. Before Delgado could respond, federal agents in tactical gear emerged from the courthouse, taking custody of the Scorpion leader. Noah had arranged their presence quietly, ensuring that Delgado would be transported to a secure federal facility before any of his powerful connections could intervene. As the plaza cleared and emergency services tended to the few injuries, none life-threatening, Noah found Melissa Jordan waiting for him, her son clutched tightly to her side. "You knew they were coming for the festival," she said. "It wasn't a question." "Yes. You used us as bait." Noah met her gaze directly. "I positioned you where I could guarantee your safety. There's a difference." "Is it over?" Leo asked, his eyes wide beneath the red baseball cap. "Are the Scorpions gone for good?" Noah considered the question carefully. The boy deserved honesty, but not the full truth. Not about Project Sidewinder, not about the military connections, not about the larger conspiracy that Delgado had been merely one part of. "The Scorpions won't trouble Coyote Ridge anymore," he answered finally. "But there's still work to be done." As if on cue, his phone vibrated with a message from the same unlisted number. "Impressive opening move, Eagle. But taking a captain doesn't end the game. The general still stands." Noah pocketed the phone, already calculating his next steps. Today's victory had been necessary, but incomplete. The Scorpion Syndicate was just the visible symptom of a deeper disease, one that reached into the highest levels of power. Captain Rivera approached, holstering her weapon. For the first time since Noah had arrived in Coyote Ridge, her expression showed genuine respect. "That was some shooting, Sheriff. Never seen anything like it." "Just lucky," Noah deflected. 3 shots to disable weapons without injuring the shooters? She shook her head. "That's not luck. That's something else entirely." Behind them, the courthouse clock chimed the half-hour. Festival decorations fluttered in the desert breeze, incongruously, cheerful against the backdrop of detained gang members and discarded weapons. Within hours, life in Coyote Ridge would begin returning to normal. Shops would reopen, children would play outside again, the fear that had gripped the community would start to fade. But Noah knew better than to celebrate. Today had been just one battle in a longer war, a warning shot to those who thought small towns and their people were expendable. The real fight was just beginning, and it would require more than sharpshooting skills to win. As the federal agents departed with their prisoners, Noah spotted Judge Harriman watching him from the courthouse steps, a question in his eyes. "What, now?" the judge asked as Noah approached. Noah looked out over the plaza, where deputies were already beginning to restore order, where townspeople were cautiously emerging from shelter, where a community was reclaiming its home. "Now," he said quietly, "we follow the money." 3 days after the Desert Heritage Festival, Coyote Ridge felt like a different town. American flags fluttered from storefronts that had been boarded up just a week earlier. Children played freely in parks that had stood empty for months. The evening streets came alive with locals enjoying the cooling desert air, reclaiming their community one sunset stroll at a time. But beneath this newfound confidence, questions lingered. Federal agents had descended on the town after the Scorpion takedown, establishing temporary headquarters in the courthouse. Black SUVs with government plates now occupied the spaces where Scorpion vehicles once parked. Classified equipment transformed the third floor of the municipal building into a command center, off-limits to local law enforcement, even to Sheriff Noah Blackwood. In the dimly lit back room of Rosa's Cafe, which had closed early for a private event, Noah spread surveillance photos across a worn wooden table. Each image showed different government officials entering or leaving the courthouse, FBI, Homeland Security, and several figures whose agencies weren't immediately identifiable. "They're not sharing information," Captain Rivera said, setting down 2 mugs of coffee. 3 days of cooperative investigation, and they've told us exactly nothing. "They're compartmentalizing," Noah replied, arranging the photos in chronological order. "Standard procedure when dealing with potential internal corruption." "You think they don't trust us?" Deputy Ortega asked, leaning against the kitchen doorframe. "They don't trust anyone," Noah corrected. "Not until they determine how far up this goes." Judge Harriman entered through the back door, carefully locking it behind him. The elderly jurist looked exhausted, the events of the past week etched into the lines of his face. "They're transferring Delgado tonight," he announced without preamble. "Special transport, destination classified." "They're worried someone might try to silence him," Noah observed, unsurprised. "With good reason," the judge confirmed, placing a thumb drive on the table. "This arrived in my chambers an hour ago. Anonymous delivery, unmarked envelope." Noah plugged the drive into his laptop. The screen filled with military personnel files, operation reports, and financial records, all stamped with various classification levels. He recognized the formatting immediately from his years in special operations. "This is highly classified material," he said, scanning the documents. "Whoever sent this is risking a treason charge." "Or trying to prevent one," Rivera suggested, moving behind Noah to view the screen. "What exactly are we looking at?" "Evidence," Noah replied, opening a folder labeled Sidewinder Phase 2. Operation Sidewinder wasn't just about weapons trafficking. It was a domestic pacification program disguised as counter-terrorism training. The documents revealed a disturbing pattern. What had been officially presented as an initiative to train special forces in countering insurgency techniques had actually served as cover for testing population control methods on American soil. Small, isolated communities had been targeted, first those struggling with existing drug problems, then those with strategic resource value. "They've been using criminal organizations as proxies," Noah explained, bringing up a map marked with red dots across the southwest. "The gangs create the problem. Then military contractors offer solutions, private security, surveillance systems, eventually complete control over local resources." "That's insane," Ortega protested. "This is America. The military can't deploy against civilians." "They're not deploying military," Noah corrected. They're using private contractors staffed by former special forces, men like Delgado, who went off the books after discharge. And Sagebrush County was next on their list, Judge Harriman concluded. But why? We don't have major drug trafficking, routes or strategic resources. Noah brought up another file, this one containing geological surveys of the land surrounding Coyote Ridge. Actually, we do. According to these surveys, the mesa formations north of town sit on one of the largest, untapped rare earth mineral deposits in North America. Rare earth minerals? Rivera asked. Elements critical for everything from smartphones to advanced weapons systems, Noah explained. China currently controls over 80% of the global supply. A domestic source this size would be worth billions if you could acquire the land cheaply. Understanding dawned on Rivera's face. By destabilizing the county until property values collapse and people sell for pennies on the dollar. Exactly, Noah confirmed. The same pattern they used in Copper Canyon and Millbrook County. Create a crisis, offer a solution, acquire assets at fire sale prices. But who's behind it? Ortega demanded. Who has the authority to run an operation like this? Noah opened the final file on the drive. The document contained a single page, with a project authorization bearing one signature, General Harrison Blackwood. My father, Noah said quietly. The room fell silent. Judge Harriman recovered first, his judicial composure reasserting itself. Your father has been dead for 5 years, Noah. Yes, Noah agreed, his expression unreadable. Killed in a helicopter crash in Afghanistan. At least that's what the official report claimed. He enlarged the document, pointing to the date. This authorization was signed 6 months ago. That's impossible, Rivera said. Unless his death was fabricated, Noah replied, and he's been running Sidewinder from the shadows ever since. The implications hung heavy in the room. If true, it meant a conspiracy reaching into the highest levels of military command. A general, believed dead, orchestrating the systematic exploitation of American communities. Is that why you came back to Coyote Ridge? Judge Harriman asked softly. You suspected your father was alive? I came back because I received this, Noah said, removing a tarnished sheriff's badge from his pocket. It was bent and scorched, but the name engraved on the back was clearly visible. William Blackwood, Noah's grandfather. This arrived at my forward operating base in Syria 3 months ago. No note, no explanation. Just my grandfather's badge that was supposedly buried with him 4 years ago. A message, Rivera realized. A warning, Noah corrected. Someone wanted me to know that what happened to my grandfather wasn't an accident. The car crash, Judge Harriman remembered. William was investigating corruption in the county land office before he died. He was getting too close to the first phase of Sidewinder, Noah confirmed, and someone wanted me to know it. The kitchen door swung open as Rosa entered carrying a tray of fresh coffee. You all look like you've seen ghosts, she observed, refilling their mugs. Maybe we have, Ortega muttered. When Rosa had returned to the kitchen, Noah continued, his voice lower. The question isn't just who's behind this operation, it's who sent me these files. Someone inside wants to expose Sidewinder. A whistleblower? Rivera suggested. Or a power play, Noah countered. Military operations this size create factions. Someone may want to eliminate competitors. What's our next move? Ortega asked, unconsciously using our rather than your, a small but significant shift. Before Noah could answer, his phone vibrated with an incoming text from an unlisted number. Special transport compromised. Extraction team en route to Federal convoy. ETA 22 minutes. Noah stood immediately. Delgado's transport has been targeted. Someone's making a move to eliminate him before he can testify. The feds have that covered, Rivera protested. Their security protocols have been compromised, Noah finished. We need to intercept that convoy now. With what resources? Judge Harriman demanded. We have a small-town sheriff's department against what I assume are military-trained contractors." "We have something they don't," Noah replied, already moving toward the door. "Home field advantage." Dusk painted the desert in shades of fire as Noah's modified Jeep raced along the unmarked back roads that crisscrossed Sagebrush County. Few outsiders knew these routes existed, ancient trails used by indigenous peoples, later by smugglers, during Prohibition, and now by locals seeking shortcuts across the vast landscape. Beside him, Deputy Ortega clutched the dashboard as they took a ridge at speed, briefly going airborne before landing hard on the packed sand below. "The convoy will be passing through Diamondback Canyon in 14 minutes, Noah said, checking the GPS tracker he'd planted on a federal vehicle the previous day. "The ambush will likely come at the narrowest point, where the road hugs the cliff face." "How can you be so sure?" Ortega asked. "Because it's what I would do," Noah replied. "Contain the convoy in a choke point, block both exits, eliminate targets with precision fire from elevated positions." "And your plan to stop this?" "Get there first." The Jeep fishtailed around a corner, sending a rooster tail of dust into the darkening sky. Noah had chosen this vehicle carefully: modified suspension, reinforced chassis, and several features that weren't available to civilian buyers. The previous night, he'd retrieved it from a storage locker registered under a name that didn't exist in any public database. "In my pack," Noah instructed, nodding toward the backpack at Ortega's feet, "there's a case with a disassembled rifle." "Get it ready." Ortega opened the pack, finding a compact case containing a weapon unlike any service pistol or hunting rifle he'd seen. "What is this?" "M110A1 CSAS," Noah answered, eyes never leaving the brutal terrain ahead. "Semi-automatic sniper system, effective range 1,200 meters, military prototype, never officially deployed." "And you just happen to have one?" "Let's say it's on indefinite loan," Noah replied, taking the Jeep up a near-vertical incline that shouldn't have been passable. They crested the ridge above Diamondback Canyon just as the last light faded from the sky. Below, the narrow road wound through the rocky landscape like a black ribbon. No vehicles were visible yet, but Noah knew they were coming, the federal convoy from the east, the extraction team from the west. "Set up here," Noah instructed, positioning. The Jeep behind an outcropping that provided both cover and a commanding view of the canyon. "When I give the signal, kill the lights and engine." While Ortega assembled the rifle with surprising competence for someone who claimed no special operations experience, Noah extracted a small thermal imaging device from his pack. Through it, he could see heat signatures approaching from both directions, the larger convoy of 4 vehicles from the east and a smaller, faster-moving trio from the west. 2 minutes to intercept," he said quietly. "The extraction team will disable the lead and rear vehicles, trapping the prisoner transport in the middle. Classic ambush." "Shouldn't we alert the feds?" Ortega asked. "No time, and we can't risk using radio. They'll be monitoring all frequencies." Noah took the assembled rifle, checking its balance and sighting through the advanced scope. "Besides, we don't know which feds might be compromised." The federal convoy appeared first, headlights cutting through the growing darkness as they entered. The canyon, standard formation, lead SUV, prisoner transport van, command vehicle, rear security, textbook and predictable. "Now," Noah said, and Ortega killed the Jeep systems, plunging them into darkness. Through the thermal scope, Noah watched as the extraction team's vehicles accelerated around the western bend, heading straight for the convoy. Their heat signatures showed tactical positioning, shooters stationed for maximum coverage, heavy weapons mounted on lead and rear vehicles. 3 targets, Noah murmured, more to himself than to Ortega. Driver of lead vehicle, gunner on vehicle. 2, commander in vehicle 3. What happened next occurred with such surgical precision that Ortega would later struggle to describe it to Captain Rivera. 3 shots, so perfectly timed they sounded like a single extended report echoing through the canyon. Through his binoculars, Ortega saw the lead extraction vehicle suddenly swerve and crash into the canyon wall as its driver slumped forward. The mounted weapon on the second vehicle abruptly ceased firing, its operator falling back from the controls. The third vehicle's passenger door flew open as someone, presumably the commander, was ejected from their seat by the impact of a round hitting their body armor with enough force to throw them clear of the vehicle. "Jesus," Ortega breathed. "Taking the second team now," Noah said calmly, as if he were discussing the weather. 3 more shots rang out, each finding its mark, despite the chaos now unfolding in the canyon below. The extraction team's vehicles, suddenly without leadership or coordinated firepower, scattered in confusion. Noah lowered the rifle. "They'll retreat and regroup. That gives us about 4 minutes. He started the jeep, flipping on a modified light bar that illuminated the steep path down to the canyon floor. The vehicle descended at an angle that seemed physically impossible, bouncing over rocks and sliding through loose sand until it reached the road directly in front of the now stopped federal convoy. Federal agents emerged from their vehicles with weapons drawn as Noah stepped out of the jeep, hands raised. "Sheriff Blackwood, Sagebrush County," he called out. "You've just been targeted by an extraction team sent to eliminate your prisoner." The lead agent, a woman in her 40s with the bearing of someone who'd spent significant time in combat zones, approached cautiously. "How did you know about this transport? This route is classified." "The same way the extraction team knew," Noah replied. "You have a leak, and in about 3 minutes they'll return with reinforcements." As if to confirm his warning, the sound of approaching vehicles echoed through the canyon. "We need to move Delgado now," Noah continued. "I know a route they won't anticipate." The agent studied him with cold calculation, clearly weighing the risk of trusting an unknown local sheriff against the immediate threat. "Why should I trust you?" "Because I just saved your lives," Noah answered simply, "and because I need Delgado alive to testify about Operation Sidewinder and my father's involvement." Something flickered in the agent's eyes. Recognition, perhaps, or confirmation of a suspicion. "You're Harrison Blackwood's son, yes, the one they called the Eagle." Among other things, she made her decision. "Get him in your vehicle. We'll follow." Within 2 minutes, Vincent Delgado, handcuffed and wearing body armor, was secured in Noah's jeep. The prisoner's eyes widened in recognition as Noah took the driver's seat. "They sent the Eagle himself to save me," Delgado said with bitter amusement. "The irony is exquisite." "No one sent me," Noah replied, gunning the engine as they veered off the main road onto a trail barely visible in the darkness. "I have questions only you can answer." "About your father?" Delgado guessed. "About why a decorated general would fake his death and orchestrate the systematic exploitation of American communities?" "For starters." Delgado stared out at the moonlit desert racing past. "You won't like the answers." "I'm not expecting to," Noah replied, taking the jeep up a near vertical incline that had the federal vehicles struggling to follow. "But I need to know if Sidewinder stops with my father, or if it goes higher." For the first time, genuine emotion crossed Delgado's face, something approaching fear. "Higher? You think this is just about money and minerals?" He laughed, the sound hollow in the confines of the jeep. "Your father is a patriot, Eagle. Everything he's done, everything we've done, has been in service to a greater purpose." "What purpose justifies terrorizing American citizens?" Noah demanded, navigating a hairpin turn that sent loose rocks cascading into the darkness below. "Preparation," Delgado answered. "The world is changing. Resources are dwindling. Borders becoming meaningless. Your father saw what was coming before anyone else, the collapse of the old order, the chaos that would follow. Sidewinder isn't about exploitation. It's about creating secure zones that can function independently when the wider systems fail. By using criminal gangs to terrorize communities into submission. By identifying communities with strategic value and testing their resilience, Delgado corrected. The strong adapt and survive, the weak are replaced. Social Darwinism disguised as national security, Noah observed, disgust evident in his voice. Call it what you want, Delgado replied. Your father understood the necessity. He still does. The implication hung between them as Noah guided the jeep through the labyrinthine backcountry of Sagebrush County, leading the federal convoy toward a destination only he knew. Is he alive? Noah finally asked, the question he'd carried since receiving his grandfather's badge. Delgado's silence was answer enough. Where? I don't know, Delgado admitted. He communicates through intermediaries, compartmentalizes everything. But I will tell you this. He's very interested in your return. To Coyote Ridge. That wasn't part of the plan. No, Noah agreed, his eyes fixed on the horizon where the first safe house waited. It wasn't his plan. It was mine. The abandoned mining administration building stood like a sentinel against the dawn sky, its weathered stone facade glowing. Amber in the first light, positioned on the highest point of the Sidewinder Mesa, it offered unobstructed views in all directions, a tactical advantage that hadn't been lost on whoever selected it as a meeting point. Noah approached on foot, having left his vehicle concealed in a dry wash half a mile back. The message that had arrived via Judge Harriman had been explicit: come alone unarmed at sunrise. The coordinates had led him here to a place that carried the project's name, either coincidence or a deliberate message. 2 weeks had passed since the convoy incident. Delgado was now in federal custody at an undisclosed location, cooperating with authorities in exchange for considerations that would likely keep him alive, if not free. The Scorpion Syndicate had fragmented, its remnants scattering across state. Lines no longer a threat to Coyote Ridge, but the larger game continued. Noah paused at the perimeter, scanning the area with practiced eyes. No vehicles visible, no obvious security measures, but he detected the subtle signs of surveillance, disturbed dust patterns indicating recently placed equipment, the faint electromagnetic signature of active electronics that his specialized wristwatch detected. He was being watched. Good. That was the point. The heavy wooden door swung open at his approach, revealing a dim interior. Noah entered without hesitation, allowing his eyes to adjust to the gloom. The building's interior had been modernized. New floors, reinforced walls, and state-of-the-art communication equipment that seemed incongruous against the century-old architecture. I was beginning to think you wouldn't come. The voice came from the far end of the room, where a figure sat silhouetted against the light from a single window. Noah recognized it immediately, though he hadn't heard it in 5 years. You should know better, Noah replied, his own voice steady despite the emotional turbulence beneath. I always complete the mission. General Harrison Blackwood stepped into the light, moving with the same military precision Noah remembered. At 62, he remained imposing, tall, broad-shouldered, with the rigid posture of someone who had spent a lifetime in command. His face showed more lines than Noah recalled, and his once dark hair had gone completely silver, but his eyes, the same sharp blue that Noah saw in the mirror each morning, remained unchanged. The mission, Harrison echoed, studying his. Son with clinical detachment, is that what this is to you, taking down Sidewinder? Isn't that why you sent grandfather's badge? To point me toward your operation? A flicker of surprise crossed the general's face. I didn't send William's badge. Then who did? The same person who leaked classified files to Judge Harriman. The same person who warned you about the convoy ambush. Harrison moved to a tactical map displayed on a digital screen, covering one wall. Someone with access to my inner circle has gone rogue, Noah. I suspect it's the same person who arranged this meeting." Noah remained where he stood, maintaining distance. Why fake your death? Why create Sidewinder in the first place? Harrison's laugh held no humor. Direct as always. No small talk, no good to see you're not dead, father. Answer the question. The general sighed. The sound weighted with something that might have been regret in a different man. I was recruited for a project so classified it exists above traditional command structures. A contingency program designed to ensure American strategic interests survive catastrophic societal breakdown. By terrorizing small towns? Noah challenged. By securing critical resource regions and testing governance models that can function. Without centralized authority, Harrison corrected. You've seen the projections, Noah. Climate collapse, resource wars, mass migration. They're not theoretical futures anymore. They're inevitabilities within our lifetime. So you're creating feudal states with yourself as warlord, Noah summarized coldly. How patriotic. You always did oversimplify, Harrison replied, his tone hardening. This isn't about power, it's about survival. These communities will thank us when the federal government can no longer provide basic services, when supply chains collapse and mass starvation hits the cities. The people of Coyote Ridge don't seem particularly grateful for your intervention, because they don't understand what's coming. Harrison moved closer, his voice taking on the persuasive tone Noah remembered from childhood arguments. But you do. You've served in regions where government has already failed, where tribal loyalties and resource control determine who lives and who dies. You've seen the future, son. I've seen warlords justify atrocities with similar rhetoric, Noah countered. I never expected my father to become one. Something dangerous flashed in Harrison's eyes, the command presence that had made generals and politicians alike defer to his judgment. I didn't bring you here to debate ethics. I brought you here to offer you a place in what's coming. You didn't bring me here at all, Noah reminded him. Someone else orchestrated this meeting. A detail, Harrison dismissed. The point is, you've demonstrated exactly the leadership qualities Sidewinder needs. Your handling of the Scorpion situation was exemplary. Minimal casualties, maximum effectiveness. You turned a community from fearful victims into organized resistance in a matter of days. I protected them from your mercenaries. You proved the concept, Harrison corrected. Resilient communities under capable leadership can withstand external pressure. That's what Sidewinder is ultimately designed to create. Noah felt a cold certainty settling in his chest. By capable leadership, you mean people like you, people willing to terrorize and manipulate to maintain control. I mean people like us, Harrison emphasized. The Blackwood lineage has protected this region for generations. Your grandfather as sheriff, me as a military commander, you as both. It's in our blood. Grandfather died trying to expose Sidewinder, Noah said quietly. You had him killed. For the first time, Harrison's composure cracked. I gave no such order. William discovered preliminary land acquisitions and started investigating. Someone in the operation took matters into their own hands. And you did nothing to stop it. I was in Afghanistan when it happened, Harrison insisted. By the time I learned the truth, it was too late. The operation had become too important to expose over one death. One death, Noah repeated. Your own father. Sacrifices must be made for the greater good. Something our family has always understood. The assertion hung between them, widening the gulf that 5 years of absence had already created. Noah studied the man before him, not as a father, but as a target, a threat to be neutralized. That's where you're wrong, Noah finally said. What our family understood was duty, service, protection of the innocent, not sacrificing them for some apocalyptic fantasy. Harrison's expression hardened. This meeting is clearly pointless. You still think in terms of conventional morality, conventional governance. You'll understand eventually when the systems you're trying to preserve begin to collapse. Perhaps then you'll remember this offer." "What offer?" "Join us," Harrison said simply. "Take command of the Sagebrush region. Build it into a resilient community under your protection. When the federal authority crumbles, and it will sooner than you think, you'll be positioned to save these people rather than watch them destroy each other." Noah let the offer settle between them, allowing his father to interpret his silence as consideration. "And if I refuse, then Coyote Ridge becomes a case study in failed resistance," Harrison replied coldly. "The Scorpions were just one asset. There are others, more effective, less visible." "More threats," Noah observed. "The universal language of tyrants." "Realism," Harrison corrected. "Something you learned in combat but seem to have forgotten in peacetime." Noah moved toward the window, seemingly contemplating the landscape below. "There's one thing I've been wondering. Who actually runs Sidewinder? Even a general doesn't have the authority to orchestrate something this extensive. That's need-to-know information," Harrison replied with a thin smile. "If you accept my offer, perhaps you'll find out." Noah nodded, as if accepting this limitation. "I assume you need my answer now." "You have 48 hours, Harrison said. "Use them wisely." "I don't need 48 seconds, Noah replied, turning to face his father fully. "This operation ends now." Harrison's laugh was genuine this time. "And how exactly do you plan to accomplish that? You came alone, unarmed, to a secure location." "Did I?" Noah raised his wrist to his mouth. "Eagle to nest. Execute." For a moment nothing happened. Then the building's lights flickered and died as the power was cut. Through the windows Noah could see black helicopters appearing over the Mesa Rim, while vehicles approached along the access road. Harrison's face remained impassive, but his eyes betrayed momentary surprise. "You brought backup to a private meeting." "Disappointing, but predictable." "I brought witnesses," Noah corrected as the door burst open behind him, "including the Senate Intelligence Committee's chief investigator, the FBI's Domestic Terrorism Unit, and a very interested Justice Department task force." As federal agents flooded into the room, Noah gestured to his wristwatch. "Our entire conversation was transmitted live. Your confession, your threats, your offer, all on record now." For the first time, genuine uncertainty crossed Harrison's face. "You were always tactically proficient," he acknowledged as agents surrounded him. "But you've overlooked something critical." "What's that?" "I'm not the only general involved in Sidewinder." Harrison's voice dropped so only Noah could hear. "When this is over, remember my offer. It will still stand." As the agent secured Harrison and read him his rights, Captain Rivera appeared at Noah's side. "We got everything," she confirmed. The transmission was clear. 17 simultaneous. Raids are underway across 8 states, targeting Sidewinder's entire infrastructure. Noah nodded, watching as his father was led away in handcuffs. "And the others, the higher-ups he mentioned?" "We'll find them," Rivera assured him. "This is just the beginning." Outside, the sun had fully cleared the horizon, bathing the mesa in golden light. Noah stood at the edge, looking down at Coyote Ridge in the distance, tiny buildings and streets laid out like a model village from this height. So small, so vulnerable, yet so worth protecting. "Sheriff?" Deputy Ortega approached. Cautiously, "The federal team leader wants to know if you're riding back with them or taking your own vehicle." Noah considered the question, his eyes still on the town below. "Tell them I'll make my own way back." As Ortega departed, Noah remained at the overlook, watching helicopters circling the site like great mechanical birds of prey. The mission was accomplished. Sidewinder exposed, his father in custody, the conspiracy unraveling. Yet he felt no satisfaction, only a hollow certainty that the battle wasn't truly over. His father's warning echoed in his mind. I'm not the only general involved. The desert stretched beyond Coyote Ridge in all directions, vast and unforgiving, its secrets buried beneath shifting sands. Somewhere out there, the remaining architects of Sidewinder were already regrouping, adapting, preparing their next move, and when they came, the eagle would be watching, his vision as clear and precise as ever. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.